Knockback, the retro and nostalgia podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Knockback. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my brother Dagan Moriarty. Dagan, good to see you today, my friend. How are you?
Shush.
No, you just shush.
Shush. Howdy. First knockback of 2024, my friend.
Yeah.
As far as recording goes.
Yeah, I think it. Right? Yeah, that's right. We haven't gone in a while because we had that kind of weird interstitial period where we were getting the new schedule going. So now we punch first here.
And Kyle, what better way to bring it in than your niece, my going on 17-year-old, throwing a tantrum 5 minutes ago, and maybe or maybe not kicking her slipper at me.
Really?
Kicked her slipper at me, kicked one slipper off into the, she was in the, so this is what happened. She's standing in the hallway. I hear her starting to argue with Helene. So I hear the girls, you know, it's heating up. It's a familiar scene when you have a teenager and a wife, right? And although I think it's getting more mellow with age, but it's still happening, right? So I hear an argument inciting, right? And I'm like, what is this about? So then I get, I'm up in my studio getting ready for the pod. So I'm not down there, but I get the sense that she wants to go somewhere. But it snowed about probably 4 inches last night. So I didn't finish the driveway yet. So I hear Helene saying, Dad's not going to finish the driveway until after he records the show. But she wants to go to her friend's house now. Like, her best friend lives in the neighborhood, but it's probably a good half mile away, right? So she wants us to drive. And I said, I can't drive. Yeah. Can't drive you right now. And so I come downstairs. I'm like, Lil, listen, this is exactly what I said. I said, Lil, I love you, but the family doesn't live and die by your every need, right? Like, you're going to have to wait. She got upset. I said, she was like, I'm walking to Jules' house. I'm like, you can't walk. You're literally wearing slippers. Did you look outside? You can't wear slippers to Jules' house. And she kicks one off and goes in the dining room, kicks the second one off, hits me in the leg, and storms out, puts a pair of sneakers on. So she did listen, and then took off to her friend's house. And I'm like, this is how I have to. Did
you tell her what would have happened if she did that? If we did that to Mom and Dad? I wonder if she would.
I'm not sure if she intended to hit me, but it had. I didn't want to laugh. Right. But I'm not sure if she hit the intended target or if it accidentally hit my leg. It's not really like Lily at a physically attack. So I think maybe she was taken aback that it hit me in the leg. But I thought it was funny. But then in that context, you can't laugh. You got to maintain that, disciplinarian attitude. But yeah, so my daughter's walking in the snow somewhere, with sneakers on. Snowed about 4 inches. I don't think they plowed for some reason. So hopefully she gets to her friend's house without sans frostbite.
All the plow drivers are probably on suicide watch now because of the Eagles.
Oh, that's right.
Although everyone knew that was going to happen. Yeah.
And that's fresh in the offing too, right? Because that was Monday. That was yesterday.
Yeah, from when we're recording.
Yeah.
It was the last game I watched. And it was just like, everyone knew that was going to happen. The playoffs were just so boring this past weekend.
Yeah, was it anticlimactic?
Yeah, which was just a lot of blowouts. There was one great game. Do you know the Detroit Lions? You know the Lions.
Of course.
Won their first playoff game since 1992. And
wow,
it's only their second playoff win ever.
Holy shit.
Isn't that crazy?
That's a long time.
Because I was going to talk about this on Sacred, and I will, but there is like a trifecta of NFL teams that I feel like are in the mix for the worst. And it's like the Jets, the Browns, and the Lions. But I think the Lions have it the worst, like by far the worst. They had two of the great, they arguably had the greatest running back of all time in Barry Sanders, and then he quit because he didn't want to play there anymore. They had the greatest receiver of all time, and one of them in Megatron, and he quit way before he was supposed to because he didn't want to play there anymore.
Wow, that sucks. That sucks for the fans. That's when you hard. Now, who did they beat? Because that's bad for that team.
The Rams. But what was interesting about that was, so the Rams traded their quarterback to the Lions for the Lions quarterback. So the Stafford went to LA, Goff went to Detroit, and they did that because they felt like they needed a piece to get over the hump to win a Super Bowl, and they did with that new quarterback. Okay. So that quarterback was traded. That's Stafford. He won a Super Bowl. Goff kind of was discarded, but ended up becoming a good quarterback. He's always been a good quarterback, but a good quarterback on the Lions. And then it was kind of like a redemptive arc for him as well. because he got to beat his old team. And everyone was booing the old quarterback. So after the game, he was like, "Are you happy that your old team finally won?" He's like, "I'm happy for the team," because he was mad at the fans for booing him.
Right.
All right, Dig.
That was the right thing to say.
Well, over here, nothing really is happening. I literally woke up a half an hour ago. I will say that Micah brought the dogs out. So we live in a, I don't know, middle class, upper middle class neighborhood. Normal people here, very multicultural. But there's this one family that lives near us, like, I don't know, a few houses away across the street. And we call them the Whiskey Tangos and we got that from Whiskey Tango is white trash in the U.S. military. And we picked that up from Generation Kill. And we always use it. I call people whiskeys all the time.
Love that.
Especially down here. And they're very to each their own, but they're very out of place. And it's not their look or their style or whatever. It's the way this woman that lives at this house acts. She just screams and yells at her kids and screams and yells at what seems like her ex-husband all the time. And so Micah was like, dude, they're fighting outside. So I will try to go outside and catch it. But because they're always fighting outside.
Oh, wow.
Or not always, just always yelling and screaming like this woman. I see this. No offense. I don't give a fuck anyway. The way she talks to her children, I'm like, damn, dude, your kids are going to fucking hate you if they don't already hate you. And Micah and I have this joke where I guess it was the dad or someone came by and there was an argument where he's like, you can't treat me like this. I work 40 hours a week kind of thing. And so Micah and I always say that to each other. Like, you can't treat me like this. I worked 40 hours a week. But it's always just some drama over there. So I was trying to pick it up. Because sometimes I'm floating around in the pool in the summer and you could just hear the whole thing,
They're just airing their dirty laundry. You know what's crazy about that? For all the couples, all the houses, think of your neighborhood. It's saturated with so many homes. It goes on for miles, right? People really keep their business behind closed doors 99.9% of the time. You don't see that a lot. Like I saw a couple with kids arguing in the Wawa the other day, like 2 weeks ago. And I was just thinking to myself, like, you never see this. Like people always wait until they get in the car and shut the door or until they get home. And then, I'm sure people are arguing all the time, but they just, for whatever reason, we have the wherewithal not to do it in public. So it's sad to say, but it is very entertaining because I feel like it's so rare in a setting like you live in. People have the decorum to know, like, okay, once that garage door opener shuts, then we're going to have at it. But we're not going to do it for the entertainment of the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
I'm sure you see more, like you're saying, they're kind of fish out of water.
Yeah,
right?
like it's exactly. It's just, it's out of place for this area, like for this location and for the vibe.
Right.
And have a little stuff. Like the thing about those kinds of people is that it's not just whiskeys, it's anyone. It's like, no one gives a fuck about your drama. So keep it to yourself. No one wants to hear you screaming and yelling when they're mowing the lawn. No one wants to hear this nonsense. Your immediate neighbors probably hate you. I mean, I could only imagine living next to this one. The fucking voice, just the guttural like voice, always screaming, always mad. It's like, damn, dude, shut up. And the kids seem perfectly nice. Like I've interacted with them. They're like teenagers and they play basketball and stuff.
Older. Okay.
And like, I'm like, they seem perfectly friendly. They say hello to me.
Right.
They're okay. It's just like I feel bad for them. It's like, damn, dude, it's always just like, get in the fucking car kind of.
Oh, that sucks. I do feel bad for the kids, but I gotta say, it's a little refreshing for now. They're not doing it because they're just like, I'm just gonna let it all hang out.
No, they're airing it. Yeah,
right. But they don't have any. They're not thinking, I'm going to do that anyway. They're being. I mean, it sounds disrespectful and noisy for the neighbors, but it almost has that thing of like the thing you enjoy watching on YouTube, right? Like people getting into it.
Oh,
people
love
getting scuffles at the convenience.
Oh yeah, I would be watching. That's a classic neighbor dispute. I mean, it's just that no one is recording it. Yeah. Now I have cameras all over the outside of the house, but I can't see it. And there's no audio and stuff anyway, and I wouldn't do that to my own neighbors.
Right.
But,
there's no audio. Right.
But I just, because like, it's just, there's like very friendly people over here and their kids are loud as fuck, but I don't care about that. It's that because there's so many little kids, that's not a problem. But generally speaking, there's a good vibe in this neighborhood. And yeah, and then Micah was just like, dude, they're having an argument again. It's like clockwork almost.
There's always one, my friend, always one.
And I'm really insistent, and everyone gets into fights with their significant other, with whatever. I'm really insistent on being like, this has to happen in private. Like, don't even. Because I had an ex who kind of got a little dramatic in public sometimes, and I like literally just would leave.
Yeah, that sucks.
She got into an argument with someone at a bar once when I lived in San Francisco, and I literally got into an Uber and left. I'm like, I'm not having anyone pull out their cameras and catch me here. Sorry. See ya.
TMZ. They got you on TMZ.
It's just like, I don't act like that. That literally happened. It was a very toxic relationship we were in, but 10 times probably in different cities where I'm like, I'm out, like San Diego, Las Vegas. Probably should have learned after a while,
10 different cities of that.
Yeah. Like just instances where it's just like, you're drunk and you're crazy. No, we're not doing this in public. No. You can yell at me and be whatever, and I'll yell at you in private if I feel like I'm mad at you, but we're not going to, can we at least chill out, in public?
I'm mortified of that because I'm such a deeply private person. Like I legitimately, whether I like my neighbors or don't like my neighbors, I legitimately just don't want people to know my business. You know what I mean?
Exactly
it has nothing to do with them. It's about me. But isn't it funny that we do have this dog pack mentality of like giving the appearance that everything's always on the up and up? Like you're saying, everybody argues. I just don't want to do that. I just don't want to do that stuff in public. I want to keep up. We all want to keep up appearances. Almost all of us, not your neighbor, but 99% of us want to keep up appearances, right? But we all go through the same things, but we're so guarded, let's just keep it on the up and up and just say it's out of politeness, right? Like we don't do that. So we're not disrupting we're not rocking the boat.
Right. And you don't want to it's like, what I was watching recently, Dave, which you'll appreciate, Bagel Boss. Every time he comes up on Twitter, now the Bagel Boss comes up more and more seldom because time is passing. But I'll see that video come up and I'm like, this is one of the most wild events in this happened in public. Like what kind of malfunction do you have to have in your brain to act like that?
It's a malfunction.
Yeah,
that's
totally. It's like totally, dude, I want to fucking straight literally murder people sometimes, but like you're in public, dude. Like it's just, I'm of the mind that people are always watching, listening, recording, all of those kinds of things. I just want to like get to where I'm going, not have any problems, and then get back to where I'm supposed to be.
Yep.
That's literally it. That's literally
same thing.
It's not.
But shout out to those who malfunction because it is.
Yeah,
it's so mean, but it's so entertaining.
They're the public freak out Reddit. I mean that's my bread and butter. I mean, I love that shit. Just some of the most crazy shit ever happens, and it's just not going to be me, but I'm going to watch it. Now,
don't you worry about karma though? Like, we're enjoying it. You and I are guilty of that. Is it going to come full circle? Like,
no, because dude, if this is the thing, it's not karma because it would be karma if I was literally you left your phone on or something after we were on a phone call and then you had a conversation in your house that I wasn't supposed to be privy to. If you air your shit out in public to the point where people can record it, watch it, see it, there's no karmic debt in that. You did that to yourself.
You should know better.
It would be different if I was like, I'm going to put a fucking recording device in your house to catch you in these moments. Then that would be karma. Yeah. Then that would come and get me.
I like that philosophy. But
I'm not worried about that otherwise. That's not something I'm worried about personally. All right. Dave, let's get into the topic. It's a good one. It's drinking as youth. Now, I think that our audience isn't fucking stupid, but just to put it out there, this episode is not meant to tell you that it's good to drink underage, that you should drink underage, that you should let your children drink underage. Although I am personally of the mind that the drinking age of 21 is absurd, that it should be 18, that I hate to tell you this, Dave, your daughter probably drinks sometimes, right? You would assume so.
I'm sure she does. Yeah. At this point, it's going on 17.
When I was 17, I was drinking almost every weekend. Now, I'm not proud of that, but it is the culture. And so with that said, we wanted to talk about our own experiences drinking growing up. And I think we can kind of cut it off almost when we turn 21, because then it doesn't become interesting anymore. So even through college, because college was obviously revelatory for me as well, but we all have these journeys with drinking and some people don't. It's this very mystifying thing. You don't really get it. All right. So I'll give you my perspective. I didn't really understand it, but the thing about it that I think about all the time, Dave, and you're going to have a different perspective on this, which is why I'm so eager to let you start off, is I didn't really grow up around anyone that was drinking. By the time I was really coming up, Dad was done drinking. Mom was done drinking. They both drink now, but they didn't drink at all for like 25 years.
No.
And Dad had a problem with it. I think, I don't know that he would, I think Allie called him an alcoholic once to his face, like that he was an alcoholic, and Dad was like, I wasn't an alcoholic. So I don't know where he stands on that, but he was always made us very self-aware to watch the drinking or whatever. And I've admitted that when I was in my late 20s, I was drinking a lot. And I can but I'm a fun drunk. I dated a horrifying drunk, right? Once. That was like fun 0% of the time, right? When they were drinking. Yeah. Me, I'm not like that at all. I'm very loose and fun. I don't get into fights or whatever. I'm actually quite pleasant when I'm drunk. I'm probably more pleasant when I'm drunk than when I'm not. So I'm curious what your experience is, because you came up earlier and I was thinking about like, what is like my exposure to booze as a young child? And I was thinking of a few people. Number one was Aunt Joni's boyfriend, Tommy, who used to drink Bud Heavies. And I remember this as a little kid because I think he let me, that was probably the first time I ever tried one, was with him when I was like very young, where you just like, you're like a 5 or 6 year old and he's like, oh yeah. And you like want to throw, But I think there's a picture of me sitting with him on Grandma and Grandpa's couch where he's drinking a Bud Heavy. And I think so there's that. And then there's our neighbors, the Kochers, their dad drank Buds too. But I remember when they would have barbecues, they'd have like these really big, I don't know if you remember them, like big ornate parties with barbecues. Like they just knew everyone. I think the dad was like a businessman. Or he owned a business and he's just very well connected. He owned like a chemical business or something on the island. And so they would be drinking beers there as well. But I didn't really understand what wine was. I remember having it at church or whatever. I think when I was getting my communion or something, I was like, this is the most gross thing I've ever had in my entire life. And the access to beer, but then that was basically it. Like no one in our family drinks really. Like Uncle Mike will have a Corona once in a while. Derek and I are the only, and Derek's our brother-in-law, I would consider the only somewhat prodigious drinkers. Like we'll drink every barbecue. We'll drink every family function. That's what I look forward to actually. It's like, oh, I'm going to drink today. But most people just don't. And I totally appreciate that. But I wonder if your upbringing and your experience with it was the same. Before we even get into what we tried and like the first time we drank on our own and the things we liked, I was curious what you remember early on in your life about that.
As you say that, it's similar how our experiences were pretty much the same-ish 10 years apart. Because, I remember alcohol being around as a kid. It was very casual and it didn't have a heavy-duty presence. We were talking about a couple of weeks ago on one of the last knockbacks of 2023. I was teasing Mom and Dad about their boxed wine, their box of Riuniti that they kept in the kitchen, that they would have a glass of wine or a whiskey sour or whatever their flavor was after dinner. That was like a mom and dad ritual. So when I was growing up, when I was a little kid, and even before you were born, so it was just me, Dana, and Allie at that point, on the 2 or 3 nights that dad would be home for dinner, that was mom and dad's thing. Like that was their routine. Like they would have, the kids would, dissipate after the meal and they would just sit around the table half cleaned up with just a glass of wine or a whiskey sour or whatever and just hang out and have a drink. And that was their thing. And I don't even know if I recognize that's alcohol, that's not alcohol, but I knew it was an adult drink because we couldn't have it. Right. So that was pretty much the extent of it. The other side of it was our Aunt Joni and her longtime boyfriend, our Uncle Tommy, like you mentioned, and Grandma, our maternal grandma, occasionally would have a beer on pizza nights and barbecues, summer barbecues specifically.
Good choices. Good choices. Yeah.
Right. And that was it. And again, it was very casual. I think Aunt Joni and Uncle Tommy did drink a lot, but not really so much around the house. Like I remember going to Mets games with them at the old Shea Stadium when I was little. And, they would have beers there. They would have beers at the restaurant.
Oh, yeah. They were probably driving on the LIE a little.
Oh, yeah. Aunt Joni says that all the time.
Worse for wear. Yeah.
Which pisses Mom off. She's like, because I spent a lot of time with Aunt Joni as a kid, weekends with her. And she was like, I was constantly driving drunk. That type of thing. Mom's like, what the fuck?
That's kind of, I think about that a lot because in our area here in Central Virginia and like kind of suburban, like getting into rural Virginia, there's just not a ride share situation here as robust as you would expect, considering there's a good amount of money here and there's a lot of people here. And I was like, Mike and I always reflect on that when we go out to eat. We usually go out to eat pretty late. Like we went out on this past Friday at like 8 o'clock for dinner. Yeah. And it's like, what are these people doing? Are they all just getting, because I'm so used to the city scene where it's like you just leave and take an Uber, or you walk, or you take the train or a cab. No one's driving anywhere. I mean, that like wasn't even an option when you'd go out to a bar in San Francisco. It's like, hey, who's driving? It's like, no one's driving. We'll meet you there. It's a 6 mile by 6 mile city. Just find your way there,
right,
and then find your way back to your apartment. And that's the way you did it. But here, I think about that a lot. I'm like, dude, I'm fucking loaded right now leaving brunch. You know, now I'm not driving, but it's like, and Micah doesn't really drink, but these people must be doing the same thing. So I always just think about that. I'm like, people are driving drunk all the time, all over the place. And
still
I'm not crazy about that. Like, I know people that have gotten hurt. My friend Jared Petty, that used to work with at IGN, his wife almost was killed on the Bay Bridge. Bay Bridge goes to Oakland from San Francisco, for people that don't know, and they got hit head on going over that bridge by a drunk driver. To the point where I was like, dude, like, I hope Jared's like a very sweet, I don't talk to Jared anymore, but he's a very sweet person. And I'm like, dude, I really hope that person just straight up dies. Like, because they were in the hospital. I'm like, they ruined your life. Like, they fucked you up. They fucked his wife up bad. And it's just too flagrant. But I'm out in places like this, dude, in Montana and places like that, like really libertarian places, you can get to go cocktails to like go pick them up and leave with it. Now I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm not really sure that that's a good idea. I don't give a fuck if you hurt yourself, but that's usually not the way it goes. In fact, I think the science is that, or at least the theory is that people that are drunk are pliable and feeling good and wiry. And when they get in accidents, they survive better. You know?
Oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah. So that's why they often hurt the other person. You know?
The bridge thing is scary because that's like the perfect formula for it. You can't dodge. Even if you see it coming, where are you going to go?
Dude, imagine getting hit head on the Bay Bridge, head on.
That's scary.
It's not a multi-layer bridge, you know?
No, that's the perfect horror story for, that's the perfect anti-drunk driving tale, right? But I mean, I see the rise. The one good thing is I do see the rise of ride sharing, Uber, Lyft, and all that stuff, even in the suburbs now. And I think a lot of that is for the bars, is for the martini joints, is for the clubs, because you could go to, you know what, a perfect case in point is November was Helene's 25-year high school reunion, I guess it was, right? 30 year. It was a 30 year. And we met up with a lot of her friends that we don't get to see very much, and their spouses at this spot in our local town. It was really nice. But a lot of people were coming. We're still in the area, but a lot of people are a half hour away now. And they just organize, either their older kids shuttled them back and forth. Their teenagers or 20-year-olds said, okay, you're going to drop us off at 9. You're going to pick us up at 1, which I thought was really cool. Or they just did the Uber Lyft thing. They Ubered in and they Ubered out, knowing that full well that they were going to be loaded. So, and then, again, like, from Philly, from San Francisco, I know from Philly and New York, like, ride sharing is the thing. That's how it operates. Mm-hmm. Nobody has cars.
Yeah, no worries in that sense.
There's a big rise in that, and I think that's probably one of the major reasons you could have you could make a little bit of money doing Uber or Lyft in the suburbs now, especially on a Friday or Saturday night, right? Or game night, Eagles are playing. Mm-hmm. That's everybody's MO, at least the responsible one. So yeah, man, that's but the alcohol thing was the same thing. And I had my first taste of beer from our then Uncle Tommy too. Same thing. Isn't it funny though? Like, I remember it so viscerally. I was probably 12. So picture baby Colin sitting in the stroller or in the high chair out back, grandma's barbecue. And I tasted the Bud. It was a Budweiser. It was always Budweiser in that house. And, your taste buds just aren't ready to embrace that yet. As a kid, you're just like, I remember solemnly swearing to myself in that moment, like, I'm never going to enjoy this. And now I never really did enjoy Budweiser. I'm a little bit of a beer snob, but your taste buds just aren't ready for that yet. They haven't evolved.
Yeah. Budweiser's fucking horrible. It really is like that's what's so interesting about and what Bud Light did to itself recently and to its brand, really permanently destroying it, because in the United States with the Dylan Mulvaney stuff, which was interesting just because I don't think they calculated, regardless of what you feel about that, I don't think that they calculated the marketing thing of like, dude, your beer sucks. There's other sucky and shitty beers and people will very happily move over to those. Like there's nothing special about this, Michelob and Modelo and all this stuff is just drink the other stuff. But I agree with you. That stuff you drink when you're young or that they give to you is not what I would end up drinking either. Although I don't mind it. It is funny. No one is ready for that beer taste. But I was saying, I was reflecting on this recently. Derek and I went out to get beers a few days ago, and I was like, we love drinking beer together. We don't really drink bourbon. We both like bourbon. I drink bourbon at his house sometimes, but we like to drink like beer, go to like a brewery, and he's a big beer dude. He'll get like flights of beer and stuff. And I was like, it's cool because beer, and I don't know if you feel this or if anyone else out there feels it, but beer is like a really rare connection to very ancient humanity. People have been drinking beer for probably 10,000 years or so.
That's incredible.
In some sense, fermenting grain and all that stuff. And we don't do almost anything that the agrarians like 10,000 years ago did in the Fertile Crescent. We don't do anything. We don't speak the same language. We don't write the same way. We don't do anything, but we all drink beer still. And I do love that. Like it is a connection to the past. And they drank so much beer, obviously, because the water was contaminated and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just fascinated by that. It's like the one thing we really do culturally.
Yeah. How did that survive? I think of like long ago, the age of the dwarves. They drank the beer.
Yeah. They drank
how far we've evolved since Middle Earth.
That's some Graham Hancock stuff. Graham Hancock's going to find the dwarves in Atlantis, but it is, how did it stay around? I think because those are like staple crops, and people, I think probably independently many, many times figured out, we can make like booze, and then this like makes us feel silly and crazy and good.
It's an escape.
Yeah. And I think that's so I love that part of beer, but the shitty beer is like, I don't know why people drink that shit at all. It's
hung
gross.
on because of cost, right? Craft beer. They didn't think of Aunt Joni and Uncle Tommy circa 1982. Right. There was no craft beer. If there was any craft beer, it was very slowly on the rise.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything
they would have
like
drank better beer if that was even an option. Who knows? But now you still go to the bar. It's like $1. You still, even in 2024, there's still $1 Bud nights, but there's never $1 Stella nights. Right. If you want Stella, you got to pay the big bucks. Right. So if you want the good craft IPA, you gotta put up for that. So that's how it survived. But yeah, it is interesting that a beer company like that in today's day and age would kind of shoot themselves in the foot. The other thing is they buy all the up and coming beer companies as well. Like any other thing, they kind of step in and say, I want a piece of that. And they have the coffers to do that. Right. That's the other thing. I don't know how much Budweiser's hurting. I think, and I don't know the answer to this, but if you look at the books and see what Budweiser actually owns, you'd be like, so I guess they're fine.
Yeah, they bought
this one, that one.
They bought Blue Point, which was Long Island's first craft brewery.
It was the first one.
Yeah,
I think on all of the island.
Yeah,
as far as I know,
it was in the 90s. I want to say something like that. Like when people started doing stuff like that, like drinking different sorts of beers, and I do love that scene. I am an IPA guy, and I've talked to you about that in the past, and Derek is too, where IPA people have like this like beer snob, bearded, kind of annoying flannel shirt feel or whatever to them. And I'm like, I don't care, man. I love IPA. I love this shit. Like that's what's so funny about it. The evolution of being 39 from trying a beer when you're 7 or 10 or whatever is just taking a sip of it is I straight up love that shit. Like I love it. I love a beer. Oh,
you genuinely love it. You're not being a hipster.
No, not at all. I really love it. The hoppier, the better. You
like those hops.
Yeah, I love it. I love IPA, man. I just love IPA. It's so tasty. And
I took over. It really took over. Go to any place.
For good reason.
It's like 10 IPAs and one other thing.
For good reason. It's the best kind of beer. It also gets you tanked.
Yes, that's true. High alcohol content.
Yeah, very high. 7, 8, 9%. I mean.
Yeah, it's a lot higher than regular beer.
Yeah, but it's not like a meal like a Guinness or whatever. And Guinness is actually pretty low ABV, but
the stout.
But it does come down. It's a lot of calories, a lot of filling. So I understand why people don't like it like that, but that's my shit. And that all came from, we'll get to that because I discovered IPA in college on accident, actually. Although I probably would have discovered it eventually. But all right, let's go back to the past though.
Okay.
One of these things I remember from our childhood or respective childhoods, I guess, and I remember from our house is that liquor cabinet that we had in the dining room. Tell me about that. Because that was just a piece of furniture. Like I didn't really understand what that was. I don't think as a kid, it was just like this this mystical thing that held something I wasn't supposed to look at or touch. And I never really even saw anyone go into it because by that time, no one was really drinking anymore. So it was over, you know. Maybe when we had guests or something, people would go and crack that open. There was probably boot bourbon in there or something. But what do you remember about that?
That was an old timey wooden fridge. It wasn't even really a fridge. It was an ice box. It was that thing that predated the refrigerator, the electric refrigerator. And I think, like so many other things, Dad rescued that from a burning building in Brooklyn. He had to have. Mom and Dad had a lot of antiques, whether it was an antique railing from an old schoolhouse. They had a lot of things. They really loved like antique stuff, antique decorations, antique furniture. So Mom and Dad had these things mixed in with the regular then contemporary furniture of like things Dad would rescue from old burning buildings in Brooklyn. And I think that was a relic of that. And you know, that pre-Colin in our old house in Medford, that icebox was situated right by the kitchen table where we would have dinner. So it was right there. If Mom just turned around from her chair, she could reach in there and get their bottle of, you know, the stuff to make their whiskey sours or their Riuniti, their box of wine that was in there or whatever. And it didn't hold a lot. You know, it just had a wooden door with the latch. And I think it did have some sort of, I don't want to say plastic or vinyl, but something inside that would have kept this stuff cool. It wasn't wooden inside. It had some sort of liner in it. But yeah, man, isn't it funny that just like little things like that are such an iconic part of your childhood? But that's where the booze was. You know, that's where they kept their, and again, they didn't have a lot. Maybe they had a little amaretto in there. They might have had a little, again, their whiskey was in there, their bottle of whiskey, but they didn't have that. We grew up with a lot of people, whether we were kids or a little older, that had the finished basements with the complete bars down there. And then it was like a whole setup.
And Grandma and Grandpa had that.
Top shelf. They even had it. Yeah.
That was a big thing post-war to do, was to finish your basement and make like an adult space in there, which really became the kids' space. I think that's, by the time you get to something like Stranger Things, where they're down in the basement, that was probably like, you could, and we don't know this, but like you could probably assume that whoever owned that house first, like kind of made that space for adults, and then kids were slowly sent down there. And I think that was the rise of the finished basement as we understand it. It was actually the adults, because think about adults like 1955, they don't give a fuck that their kids have a place to play. Are you kidding?
No, they weren't thinking that.
No,
they went outside.
Yeah, go outside, beat by. Outside. Yeah, so that's what
we're going to go in the basement and play cards and swing.
Right, exactly. And then those people sell those houses, new families like the boomer, you know, or the boomers like start buying these houses from the greatest generation, and then they start having generation X, and then Generation X starts going into those finished basements. I think
that's a great point, dude. Yeah, the boomers move in. They put the wood paneling up in the 70s. Now they escalate it from that avocado green countertop 50s vibe. They got the green paneling, the wood paneling, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and those are the basements we grew up in. You know, we didn't have a finished basement in any of our houses, but a lot of our friends did, and a lot of those basements had the bar with the stools and then the shelves of liquor, and you know, sometimes they'd have the card table set up down there for the poker, a dart board. Like that was like a setting in a lot of kids' houses. But again, Mom and Dad, I think Dad did start to drink more, heavier. I don't know, something about the pressure of moving to the bigger house, having the bigger mortgage, having to take on more side jobs. There was something with Dad increasing his drinking. I remember now that the statute of limitations has passed on this. Okay, I don't mean to embarrass Dad, but I remember him. I came home from one of the rare side jobs I did with him. I think he was building a deck for somebody on one of the weekends, and a lot of the firemen and cops moonlit. You know, they moonlighted as, you know, in a trade, whether they did plumbing or woodworking or whatever, carpentry. And he was driving down Sunrise Highway to go home. And I had my little buttered roll, my soda, or my Yoo-Hoo from 7-Eleven. And he had a couple of beers, and he was drinking a beer in a brown paper bag driving home down Sunrise Highway. And I was old enough. I was probably 13, 14. And I remember being old enough to realize he's drinking a beer while he's driving. You know what I mean? You could probably do that. Not that you could do that, but 1988 was a lot different, right? But, you know, it was just like this thing. And I remember that being, I honestly don't think Dad was ever an alcoholic, but I think he was drinking a lot more. And it was becoming a concern for Mom. Again, we were too young to really be tuned in to the finer points of that. But I do remember that, not, you know, only seeing Dad drink that casual drink after dinner and then seeing him drink a lot more. You know, he would have a beer if he was doing something outside the house on the days he was home. He would have a beer when he was on the job building a deck or whatever. That was the extent of it, though. It was very casual. In other words, what I was getting at was Mom and Dad never really drank enough to warrant having this giant liquor cabinet or a bar in the basement. They really didn't drink like that.
Let me say this real quick though, too, Dave. Do you remember? It's funny because I only reflected on this in the last few years when I owned a house and started having people come over to check things out and build things or whatever, work on stuff. Is I remember being young and like people would drink on the job like that. And so my mind has always been like, oh, it's hot out. It kind of sucks. And you have a beer or two. And I always offer beer to people that are like working outside, and they always say no. And some of them look even like, what are you talking about? A beer? But to me, that's in my mind. That's like what you do. Like, it's like, yeah, you want a beer? Yeah. Like, or a water or whatever, but you have a beer. I don't care. Yeah. And
they think you're testing them.
Right. Almost. And it's like, I'm really not. Yeah, you can have a beer. Like, I don't care. We had a guy come over once where it was funny. He was working on stuff because with Treble, she destroyed all of the molding in our house on the bottom floor by biting it. So we had it all replaced. And I gave that dude a 6-pack when he left because I was like, I just had a 6-pack from Micah's dad that when she was here. And I was like, I don't drink fucking Sam Adams. So get this, you know, take it. And he took it. He was amped up to take it. But I was like, you could start drinking.
That's a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
On his way out. Right.
Exactly. But I did tell him, like, you can crack him open now. I don't give a shit. I'm just letting you know that when you leave, you can take that beer because I'm never going to drink it. But yeah, it's funny. That's how I remembered it. I thought that was like usual, but it probably in 21st century is not like that anymore.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, like you feel like you're being tested. I mean, I kind of like the idea of taking a page out of your book because you could kind of say like, look, we're simpatico. You could chill type of thing. I think of my guy that I finally found that does all my work, at least on the outside of the house. He would never like he's way too diligent and way too, you know, obviously, and it's warranted, you know, way too aware of his image and everything like that and he's very sought after. He would never do that. But I do remember, you know, what's funny about this? I had a roofer. When we moved in, we knew the house needed a roof. At that time, the house was 20 years old, whatever it was. And about 6 months after we moved in, we made the investment of putting a new roof on the house. Got this guy, kind of vetted a few people, got a guy. He was doing all the other roofs on the cul-de-sac. He came over, said, I'll give it to you for, you know, pretty inexpensive because I'm already in the neighborhood with my crew. I said, cool. And it was a pretty good price. Cut to, he got it done. Never had a problem with it, knock wood. But I had a roofer come out to give me a quote for my siding. And he came out, let's say this was 6 months after I got the roof done. He's like, oh, I see you got a new roof. Who did it? And I said, oh, so-and-so did it. And he said, oh, shit, you know about that guy? And I was like, no. And he said that guy who runs that roofing company got into so many DUIs. He finally, ultimately got into one, killed a kid. And that's why he has a driver. And now I'm thinking back to my interactions with this guy. This guy got driven everywhere. He had... Like
me. I didn't kill anyone.
I remember him being... He was very Italian and had a very tough Philly mob-ish type of exterior. So I'm thinking this guy, I'm not thinking this guy's connected, but I'm thinking this guy's kind of embracing this image. And that's why he's got the driver. He's got this big guy with him. Every time I talk to him, he's got a guy with him, right? It was never him by himself. And he was never, or sometimes his wife would pull up in the Cadillac with him and Fancy. He would get out of the passenger seat. And
that's so funny. Oh,
shit. Now I put two and two together. Yeah, he can't drive. He's not allowed to drive.
He's like Gene. Gene can't drive because of that. Gene can't drive because he DW'd out too.
A lot of people, dude. A lot of people do it.
By the way, you use the term DWI, right?
I say DUI or drunk driving,
Do you
but
know,
DUI, I know what you mean.
Yeah, because like that's a term that some people are like, what are you talking about? DUI, and I'm like, driving while intoxicated. DUI. That's what we used to. That DUI came out of somewhere, but DWI was like how it was on Long Island when I was a kid, and people used to be like, oh, you don't want to get a DUI and stuff like that, and then I say it, and everyone's like, dude, it's not DUI, it's DUI, and I'm like, no, I'm saying DWI.
Yes, it was DWI. Then the U replaced the W at some point.
Yeah. Driving while intoxicated, driving under the influence. They don't, anyway, that's funny because I get driven around everywhere too. I don't drive, but I didn't kill anyone. I didn't do anything wrong that you know of. I'm not admitting anything on this podcast today. And, but I like getting driven around too. I don't actually ever leave though. So it's really not a huge deal. All right. Dick,
but you know what's funny about drunk driving, right? Think about someone that we love like Gene, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, it almost seems unfair. And I feel kind of bad for the people because it is irresponsible, but so many people do it and get away with it.
Right, exactly.
Right? It's like one of those things where you just had bad luck and you got caught, but that's why you really can't tempt fate.
Right. I will also say, first of all, I should know for people that don't know, Gene talks about this himself. I'm not outing him.
Oh, 100%.
But the other, so just in case everyone's like, Jesus Christ, Colin's just like airing his laundry. I'm like, no, Gene for some reason airs that laundry for himself.
He does. He does.
Which is totally fine. I don't care. But I also know, and this is just me being honest, and I can say this because I really don't, I had a car for a little while when I was young, but I didn't drink and drive. I barely drove the thing at all. But I knowingly drove with people who were drunk many times. So it's not like I'm above it. When you're in that moment and you yourself are drunk, this is why you need sober people around you in some point, like especially on the island. My friends used to drive drunk and high all the time. We used to drive around to smoke. Like we would go. So on Long Island, we would go down towards Beaver Dam and then towards Old Stump or whatever, and just down in that area and those new developments and stuff. And we would just drive around slowly and smoke weed. And often people would drink, and that's around the area where I got caught got caught smashing mailboxes where we were throwing beer and weed out of the car as we're driving down the road so we don't get caught with it. And we didn't, which was great. But so I'm not saying it from a place of judgment. I agree with you. It's like, I didn't do it, but I imagine pretty much everyone or most people have done it. Maybe not. You're not. There's a different. That's why they take your blood alcohol. It's because there's also different levels of being drunk. Like, it's not illegal to get behind a car after having a drink or two. It matters about like what your blood alcohol is and if you can control yourself. And I think that I don't know. It just seems like an easy way not to kill other people. I wouldn't even care. It's like, do whatever you want to yourself, dude. It's about the other people that you're going to hurt. That's the
thing. When you're young, we talk about this all the time, no matter what we're talking about, throwing snowballs at cars or getting into a car drunk. Like you were at that age. And today we're talking about that age, that era where the common sense part of your brain just isn't active yet. It's completely dormant. Like I did so many stupid things. You did stupid things. That's why it's important to just, and I never drove drunk either, but I was also really kind of, I was very fortunate in that I always had older friends. You know what I mean? I never had the opportunity to get in the car drunk because I was always just kind of, I had those people that were doing it anyway. But if I think of getting in the back seat of like a little 2-door car being crammed into the back seat with somebody, it's like horrifying. Knowing full well that this guy shouldn't be driving. He had like 6 beers, that type of thing. It's just as irresponsible as doing it yourself, I think. But again, you're not, that part of your brain just isn't tuned into the potential consequences yet. That's the danger of it. You're not thinking like an adult yet. At least for me, dude, I was so immature. So that, again, it's like that thing of like, you just shouldn't even enter into that potentially dangerous situation because it's just tempting fate. You know what I mean? And yeah, man, it's so common. I'm sure it's scary. It's scary to say, but I'm sure it's still really common because it's the type of thing where you're like, you probably really do think I'm okay, right? Like I'm fine. You're not out to hurt anybody. And then the worst happens. It's crazy. I know a lot more people that have done it, that are good people that just had an errant judgment. You know, it was like, wow, man, you got to, and learn their lesson. You know, that type of deal.
Yeah, it's not to excuse people's behavior, because I agree with you that knowing it's usually not a character thing as much. If you do it repeatedly, if you can understand that people find themselves in situations as one-offs where it's like, damn, that was a bad move and that was stupid, but it could end in disaster. It's a stupid thing to say, but I often think about that show Oz, just in that one of the characters ends up in prison in the beginning because he kills a kid when he's drunk driving.
It happens.
And
so sad.
Yeah, dude. It is truly, truly sad. So, yeah, I want to move on here though, Dig. I'm looking at my notes to, let's see here. Yeah. Where did you start to drink yourself? I wonder. So I wrote down middle school here, and I didn't drink in middle school. I went to Catholic school though. Now there were bad kids in Catholic school. No doubt. In fact, I think that and most of them were girls, actually, where like they were way getting into some shit. And I actually remember bringing in, we bring in our CDs and like trade them with each other, blend them out and whatever. And I had Sublime's 40 Ounces to Freedom, which is a record I love. I actually like their self-titled record that was after that even better. And I never even really knew what that was. And then I remember one of the cool girls being like, oh, 40 Ounces to Freedom. Like I had a 40 and like all this kind of stuff. And I was like in 8th grade and I was like, damn, her name was Liz. I remember this so well because I was like, geez. And so middle school was really not a thing for me. I was very late to growing up. I was allowed to stay childlike for a long period of time. Not that I wasn't like in the real world, but I just wasn't interested in growing up in that level. So even if someone like offered me something like that, which they never did in middle school, and I would go to sleepovers or whatever, they weren't bad things. Like it wasn't bad. Like what I would do in high school was way worse. And I think that was the case for a lot of people. But did you start drinking or have access to that stuff in middle school, or did it start for you in high school?
Yeah, the access started then, but I was super late bloomer. I mean, I really didn't start drinking until after high school. It was my off year between high school and college where I really started to get my feet wet with drinking. But I guess for me, and I'm sure it would be similar for you and maybe even today, the drinking started in my environment when the house party thing starts kicking off, which I guess for me was like 7th grade, when that whole house party, junior high, and then ultimately high school house party thing got started. That's when the drinking became apparent, because that's when your social life happens outside of school. Like everything prior to those house parties, those weekend house parties, when you're in junior high or early in high school, whatever it is for a person, everything's centered around just being in school, or maybe sports or activities around school, right? Or scouts or whatever you're doing. But I remember the house party thing was really important for where I grew up, because that was part of a possibility for growing your social cachet. So I remember like medium popular people having house parties just so they could get in with the cool kids. And of course it was a house party. There was going to be members of the opposite sex. There might have been booze or a keg or grabbing your parents' liquor cabinet, or somebody was getting beer, bought for them. And of course the popular kids were going to come. So that was a whole thing of like increasing your social stature. And I remember, like, for me, I just wasn't interested in it. Not only alcohol with like kids drinking beer in 7th grade, but that's when I noticed kids my age starting to smoke, right? There was smoke cigarettes, I mean.
Right.
The slightly older kids, weed was in the offing. This is like 13 or 14 years old, smoking pot. That started to happen. But all of those things, ciggies, smoking weed, drinking alcohol, beer, whatever, it just didn't, it was completely off my radar. It just did not appeal to me. I didn't look down on it. I understood. Like, I watched Porky's too. Like, I watched all the John Hughes movies. I knew what we were supposed to be getting up to. But I think I was just too distracted by just having fun with the things I liked. Skateboarding was certainly a thing. But also, like, I just was chasing the girls around. You know what I mean? Like, that's all I was interested in. It was like, this one's pretty, I'm going to go after this one. Me and my friends were like, oh, these girls are going to be there. They're super cute. That seemed to be where all my emphasis was. I just think the other stuff, it just wasn't on my radar yet. It didn't, I think I don't know. Was I channeling that like yucky tasting beer in grandma's backyard, or was it just like I didn't realize what that would do for me? I didn't realize yet. It feels pretty fun to be drunk. You know what I mean? I just thought of it as like, you know, kids trying to do these things so they could be older, so they could be like their big siblings or big cousins or the older kids in the neighborhood. And this is what you do, but I'm going to go and have fun and maybe talk to a girl. But the other stuff was just, I don't know, dude. Was I prude? Did I just not know? Was I just naive? I'm not sure. But again, I went all through high school without doing any of it.
Yeah, it's funny. I avoided liquor entirely in high school. I didn't really drink liquor at all until college. But beer and malt liquor, I guess, too, was a big thing.
I was around.
So I will say I never took anything from dad either, like, or never tried to. That was not even something I ever tried to think of, except for one thing. I did steal one of dad's Cambridge cigarettes, probably when I was in 6th grade or 7th grade. And then I went into the woods across the street from our house, like across Old Stump, to go smoke it, I think with like some of my friends, but then I couldn't do it. And then I put it back. It's a true story.
You lit it, put it out.
No. I just had, like, I had it. I was messing with it, and then I was like, I couldn't do it, and then so I didn't even light it at all. I just put it right back into the box, and then I was like wondering if dad was going to notice or not. And he never did. You know,
he never said anything.
No, because I didn't have the balls to do it. There was something about using like a lighter and matches and all this kind of stuff, and I don't know. I wonder what would have happened if I did light that cigarette at that time, but I didn't. I love smoking weed, obviously, but I've never been into cigarettes or anything of this nature. It's not really been a thing for me. I like smoking when I drink sometimes, like if people have them or you're outside standing around, I'll smoke a cigarette. I had that, I told you, and you know, in college for like 6 months, I had a brief clove cigarette phase, like a Dejarum.
I loved those. And
they just never go out. Like they smoke forever. It's like, dude, I can't smoke anymore of this. It's just going on for too long. And that was really my only experience with that. But I've never been a cigarette person. And even I get people liking it and the nicotine and all of that. But to me, I've never been into it. I've just been like, yeah, that's fine. Like I'll smoke a few or whatever one night if I'm out at a party. And then you wake up the next day, you have like a scratchy throat. It's crazy how much more harsh it is than weed. I've been smoking weed for more than 20 years. And I still can't smoke a cigarette without like coughing. You know, like if I'm really inhaling it, it's so much more harsh in my opinion. So it is more harsh than smoking weed. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was always my thing with smoking. I was a late bloomer with the ciggies too, but I was never a drug guy. Even with drinking, it was more like I enjoyed smoking the cigarettes more than anything else. You know, and again, I started late. It was stupid to even start. I definitely don't endorse it. Today with the vapes, I think it's actually dangerous for a lot of reasons, especially for kids. Like there was something, at least with conventional cigarettes, like you knew the poison you were getting. Now there's just way too many permutations and potentially dangerous shit. I gotta say, because I've looked into this a little bit, because I vape weed sometimes. Here's a vaporizer here, Jupiter vapes. They're nice, and I'm not saying that it's healthy. It's probably not good for you. But I was reading around, and there's so much conflicting information. And I'm like, how can that be as bad as smoking a cigarette? Like that doesn't even make any sense. It's vapor. It's not. Like I'm telling you, it's not. Like there's just no way. I really believe that when people were dying off the Juuls and stuff, or like whatever they were smoking for a while, it was because the stuff was contaminated. Right. It was because the stuff was contaminated. It wasn't because it was bad for you. People were dying because they were getting sick from smoking things that were like not right. But it's like, I'm smoking this. This is just this like distillate of weed. It's like, how is this bad? Yeah, that doesn't really make any sense to me. I don't believe it, I guess is what I'm saying. Like I'm not saying there's not a way you can hurt yourself. I'm not saying there's all these untold things you can do to yourself. But if you're going to put a joint or a blunt in front of me and this, and then tell me that they're the same, which some people say when you read the writings and the literature on it, it's like, that can't possibly be. That's just not a thing. It doesn't make it doesn't seem to compute, but I don't know. Is it just too new? It's still the Wild West with those things. There was something about it was supposed to be water vapor, but it turned out to be aerosol. But that might be referring to those old Juul incidents. Helene was just talking about this. Helene's really tuned into this because she's a high school teacher and she's concerned about the kids. And I'm not sure how. Are a lot of her students vaping? I don't think
in this particular school district, that's a huge issue, but I'm sure there's some percentage of kids doing it. It seemed to, from what she says, it went from all but dead to making some sort of return. And I think that's the concern largely with the teenage populace across the country, but especially in certain areas. Again, we're kind of insulated from a lot of that, but I'm sure there's some of it if it's going on somewhere, it's going on here too.
Sure.
Right? To some degree. I'm
kind of grateful it's cut down the amount of weed, like flower, I smoke significantly. And I feel like that's got to be better for me. I don't know. I mean, probably all not good for you, but I think that, the science is out on this. It just doesn't compute. Like, to me, it seems like there's some capitalistic reason that they're saying this stuff about it. It's like, oh, we don't want to disrupt the apple cart in any way. We don't want to do this and that. I'm like, is nicotine really that bad for you? Like, I wonder. I don't think so. I actually don't. That's not what's killing you. It's the carcinogens in the weird shit that you're smoking.
The tar, right?
Right. The tar and just the chemicals. It's not, because I was thinking about this too. People have been smoking tobacco. The Indians have been smoking tobacco for forever. Did they die of cancer? Lung cancer? I don't know. I mean, I have no idea.
I don't know.
But there used to be a restaurant, and you'll think this is hysterical. I used to think this was so funny. There's a place called Bull's Head in San Francisco. Awesome burger place. And they had bison burgers, and we used to make fun of it on the menu whenever we would go there, me and my friends. It said on the menu, and they eventually changed it, where it's like, they were talking about the virtues of bison meat. And then it said, like, the Native Americans never got cancer. And I'm like, how could you possibly know that? How can you know that? And then eventually they did get rid of it. Not that I said anything. You guys should go check that place out if you're in San Francisco. It's in West Portal, Bull's Head. It's a burger place. They have some other cuts of meat too, but you walk in, and on the right is just a butcher's table, like basically a butcher's thing. And it's just all fresh meats and stuff. And then they just cook the burgers up. Oh my God, it's so fucking good there.
That does sound good.
Yeah.
That does sound really, Kyle, there's a trick I learned working in children's media. This is a little insidious, but this was a real thing. And I'm not saying at the places I worked it was a thing, but universally this was a thing in children's media. You could say anything with an educational preface if you just insert in front, some say. So you could just say, some say the Indians never got cancer because they ingested so much bison meat. All you have to do is say, some say, and that dubious thing becomes a truth because you're putting that waiver in there.
Well, it's like journalists saying people are saying, but really they're just asking the question.
Exactly the same thing.
Yeah. They're just asking it, but for some reason they just, all right. So in high school is when I started to drink, and it wasn't 9th grade, 10th grade. It was really 11th grade and 12th grade. And it's funny. I was wondering what you were older, so it might have literally been beer. But in my experience and just talking to people like peers and over time and realizing that this is a somewhat shared experience is that everyone starts with shit that you would never be caught dead drinking as an adult. So like Mike's Hard Lemonade or a hard cider or something like that. Like that's how I started drinking. Mike's Hard Lemonade was the first stuff I got drunk on, was the first time I blacked out, was the first time I got sick, all that kind of stuff. And so this malt liquor is so gross, and it's so high ABV too, compared to what you think it is, because it goes down so easily. But I loved that shit. And we would have our friends, older siblings, like buy us our beer and stuff. It was never a problem. Plus, there's a place, I'm sure it's not like this anymore, but there was there were two places that would sell liquor and beer to anyone when you were in high school. And one of them was that gas station on the corner of Station Road and I don't know what that would be. You know, like where that convenience store was, that like by the railroad tracks that would always turn over, like constantly. Yeah,
Station Road in Montauk
Highway. So across the street where that insurance, like where Spicy's was, there was
where Spicy's barbecue was. Yeah.
So that place would sell beer to anyone. I was so clearly 16 years old buying beer at that place.
I never knew that.
And then the 7-Eleven down the road towards Wallbounds, they would sell whatever you wanted to.
That was the spot. Yep.
And so it wasn't a problem. No one cared. And access was not an issue. So that's what I would buy, is 6 packs of those and then get drunk on that. And it wasn't until a little later when I discovered Natural Ice or Natty Ice, which is a really bad beer, but it's so cheap. Now you move on to eat better bad beer when you're older. Like I was a big Keystone guy in college. That's like a little bit of a step up from that. But those are the two things we would drink. So pretty cheap stuff, accessible. older siblings would hook you up, but you really didn't even have to do that. If you had a ride to one of these places, you'd be fine. And I will say the other part of this too, again, in getting exposed to drinking is, and I don't think you guys will mind me saying this, is that my siblings let me drink with them all the time when we would get together. So that was how I was introduced to Heineken and Amstel and all these things that we would drink back then. Beers that I don't like at all. Like, but those are beers that are very early beer drinking Colin beers. So that's kind of where it was for me getting drunk in high school. And I have a very explicit memory of two explicit memories, actually. One is drinking natural ice at my friend Dave's house and so dad used to, and it was really sweet. He used to, when you go to the bakery, he knows I love the rainbow cookies, like with the sprinkles on them. He knows I love those.
So good.
And so he would always get me one or two of those. And I was home and I ate them, I guess. And then I went to this person's house and drank and just threw all of those up. And I remember it all just being like this multicolored mess of stuff. So that's a memory. And then the second memory is that I guess it was the summer after the summer going into my freshman year of college, my friends got a place in Manhattan. They were going to go to school at John Jay or something. And we went in there and I got blackout drunk at their apartment. And there's so many random memories because I remember, I don't know her. I didn't know her. I don't remember her name, but there was this girl that went to FIT that like really liked me that was there. And I just got totally drunk. And then she kept calling me after that. So I was like, I guess I didn't make that much of a fool of myself. And I'm like, I'm too nervous to be involved with you. I don't know what's going on here with this. But I was so sick that I ended up sleeping over there. And then the next day I got up, I dragged myself out of their apartment, got into a cab, went to Penn Station, got on the Long Island Railroad. Dad picked me up at Patchogue and at the Patchogue train station. And that was when I was dead up with her. I'm like, dude, I am fucked. Basically right now I am so shot. And I remember him bringing me to that Subway next to How May, clear as day. Cause I was like, dude, I need to eat something. I need to have something to eat.
Oh, you wanted to eat?
Yeah. Cause I was fucked by that point. Totally. It was like a day since I really started drinking. And I was just, I had never been, that was the worst I had ever been. And I didn't know what I was doing at that time. I was just drinking and drinking and drinking. So those are kind of like high school memories for me. But I don't think that I really got too out of control. And I never really got out of control after that either. I like to drink and I drank a lot in college, but that's less interesting, I think, because everyone drinks in college. So those are kind of my memories. And again, like you said, house parties, gatherings, those were always good excuses. I was always interested in, I don't think it's a good look, but there were also the parents that knew what you were doing.
Oh, sure.
And did you have those as well? I remember, dude, I remember clear as day. I mean, this was a shocking thing for me walking in and seeing this was in Medford, in the developments in Medford, walking into some dude's house, people were just gathered. I had no idea whose house it was. And they were just rolling blunts at the kitchen table. And the mom was just in there doing something. And I'm like, what is going on here? In my mind, I'm like, that's a little trashy, isn't it? Even as a 16-year-old. But I'll always remember that. So a lot of this did come by way of parents not caring or not doing, I guess the notion of I'd rather you be doing this here than somewhere else, which I think is a good notion and is a healthy notion. It should be, and maybe it is legally, I don't know. It should be okay to say to your kids, you can come drink with us here at a younger age. Who the hell is the government to tell me I can't do that with my child if we're all safe and on the up and up? But anything to say there?
Yeah, I remember those parents growing up and mom and dad vehemently disagreeing with that whole attitude. I know the philosophy is, like you said, it's better under my watchful eye than going to get up to mischief outside of my purview. Or at least, and sometimes that's genuine and sometimes it's an excuse, probably. But, just let your kids get up to whatever they want. It's maybe irresponsible. But yeah, I mean, I think that is largely the attitude is I'd rather them do it here where I could keep an eye out than go to some bar, go to some mysterious person's house where they could get taken advantage of or poison themselves or whatever. But the whole thing about drinking when you're young, I don't know. I don't know if I dodged a bullet because I have to say, I don't drink to excess. I think I'm very lucky in that I'm one of those guys that could drink a beer or two a night for 6 days in a row and then not drink for a month. Or I could get loaded, one night or even back-to-back nights and not drink until spring. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have that. I think a lot of people are, it's more dangerous to drink to excess, or they have an addictive personality, whatever that means or whatever. I think I'm largely, fortunately, shielded from that. But there was something, I wonder if I knew how good it felt to be drunk when I was a kid, would I have started drinking earlier? I don't know. It just was I just wasn't interested. You know, it just, I remember not even being, I don't know, it was almost like an also ran. You know, as long as there was people there I enjoyed spending time with, or girls there I thought they were cute, that's all I cared about. You know, just having fun without that stuff. So that was, you know, I was just 19, and I think my then girlfriend, my first long-term girlfriend was 18 at the time. And we were just fixing to set up this plan, like, we're going to drink this weekend. And I think one of us got wine coolers. It might have been her mom. Her mom was that type of thing.
Zima.
And it might, and you know what? It might have been
because Zima was big when you were in high school, I think.
Yeah, that was 93 for me, year after I graduated. So that would have been, or late 92. So it might have been Zima. And I remember not even drinking enough at that point to feel buzzed. And I do remember even starting to drink, Kyle, the same thing with you. It was beer. It might have been the Old English, the 40 of Old English or whatever. I really think for me personally, it was this odd thing of an excuse to go to the bar or to the club or to the house party. It was an excuse to smoke cigarettes. That's what I really enjoy doing. It's like, I know if I smoke cigarettes, I also have to have the beer. I didn't really get into beer until later in my 20s when I discovered Pilsners. Like, you know, like the IPAs were too hoppy. It was too much of that strong, overpowering sting. I didn't like it. The stout, too thick. You know, it was too meaty. The lagers and the pissy beers were just too watery for me. The Pilsner was sweet, and it had enough body to be beer, but not be something else. Like that's where I hit my wheelhouse. I was like, Pilsner, Urquell, Stella. Probably the gateway was Heineken. Presidente. I love that stuff. Available at Wegmans, by the way. Presidente, guys. Dominican Pilsner. Super. I think it's brewed in the USA now, but it's supposed to be from the Dominican Republic. It wasn't until Pilsner where I really became like a beer aficionado. And that's where I get a little resentful at the IPA thing. It's always like 1 or 2 Pilsners on the menu and 30 IPAs.
Yeah, it is a lot. Yeah.
Right? It's like, where are all the Pilsners? Where are all the Pilsner peeps?
You should have a variety or two of everything, I would think, if you were a real bar. Like a few piss beers, a few IPAs, a few pills, a few, you know, your hef, and so on and so forth, your lager. But
you can't blame them, right? For these kind of independent breweries and stuff like that. Like, they know IPAs are big.
Yeah, the people want what they want. Yeah.
They're going to cash in.
Well, because it's a superior kind of beer. I mean, it really is. It's can't help it. You know, by the way, I
like them. I do like them, but I think the really hoppy ones aren't for me. But I could, you know what's nice? If you just, all the Pilsner peeps out there, if you just have an IPA, something with a stronger flavor profile, and just have one of those, it's nice to chase it with something more mellow. You know, even like a Blue Moon or something, or Corona, like something that's a little pissier, but not Pabst Blue Ribbon. You know, right. Shout out to Pabst. I mean,
I saw a great video of a dude a few weeks ago in Japan. He's like a beer. I don't follow him or whatever, but it was making the rounds of a beer drinker there. And people were talking about it. He like pours it in and smells it and drinks the Pabst or whatever. And it's his first experience with it, and he really likes it. And people loved the video because he like nailed it, where he's like, oh, this is the kind of beer you want when you're like, he doesn't know anything about it. He's like, oh, this is the kind of beer you might go to the United States and find when you're at a party or something like that. Like, he was just wow. Oh, you totally understand it. Like, it's not meant to be anything more than that. And I love that it still has, like, it won that big award in like whatever year, 1930 or something, and it's still on the. I think that's so funny. I looked up Zima real quick. Introduced 1993, discontinued 2008.
Oh, was this no more Zima?
I knew that, but in Japan, I didn't know that. But here in Japan, it was introduced in 1996, and it says it proved more popular than in its home market. One reason was the fact that it didn't amass the same reputation as a drink meant for young women. Instead, it was consumed by both genders, then from most age groups, often meant as an accompaniment to meals. And it's still served there today.
Yeah, that was like the White Claw of that time.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
I don't know. Is White Claw seen as like a feminine drink? I'm not sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of, right?
I would say certainly. I don't see any dudes drinking White Claw. I don't really see anyone drinking White Claw anymore. Although that was big. White Claw was big when I was in California, in LA specifically. A lot of the girls down there drink that trash. All right. What else do I have here? Oh, the one thing I wanted to underline, I just wasn't into liquor when I was a kid. It was, I mean, that goes without saying, but I knew people that were drinking, like my ex, that I went to high school with would tell stories, and I didn't really know her. We went to a huge high school, as you know, so we didn't really know her, big high school, so we didn't know each other really well, but she would say she would be drunk on vodka, like going to school, like sometimes with her friends, or whatever. I'm like, dude, I wasn't that hardcore at all. Like, I didn't even know really what to do with liquor. It wasn't until college that I encountered liquor, and even then I wasn't into it. I got really, really bombed at a party in Boston once on Jack Daniels, and I'm like, oh god, Jack Daniels sucks. Like, what was I just didn't know anything. I hate Jack Daniels, dude. And you know what my biggest pet peeve is in the world of liquor, because I love bourbon, as everyone knows, is when you're like, do you have any bourbon, or, you know, and people say like, oh yeah, Jack Daniels, and like you have to tell them. It's happened to me multiple times in multiple bars in my life, or like, you know, an airport bar or something where I'm like, Jack Daniels isn't bourbon, you know that, right? Like, I hope you're not. How long have you been telling people that Jack Daniels is not bourbon, and it's gross? So let's not, like, the worst bourbon, like your shittiest old granddad or whatever bourbon, $10 a bottle bourbon is better than Jack Daniels. Like, not even fucking close.
Oh my God. Yeah. Jack Daniels is like, I feel like Jack Daniels is purposely custom tailored for like Jack and Cokes, you know, like that sort of thing.
And then you got people drinking Fireball, and it's like, hey, grow up.
People love Fireball.
In a world full of scotch. I don't like scotch. I know you do. You like scotch. You like
I like scotch a lot.
And you like your agave stuff too, right? Like, you like mezcal and tequila, right?
Dude, I mean, if you want to, I'll get into tequila. We'll do that next. Yeah, when I met tequila, it was like, I don't know where the Mexican is in my blood, but there's something going on here with me and tequila. Like, we get along. I could just drink a bottle of tequila. It's like blood. Like, it's like blood meridian. It would fuck me up. But it's just like, yeah, there's something going on where we're simpatico, because vodka is harsh. I can't with the, you know, it's funny with me with the cocktails and mixed drinks, Kyle. I always kind of just went with the flow, right? If I think of like different eras, it was like Helene really liked the fruity drinks when we went out. So it was like Malibu Bay Breezes. And I also had that thing of like, I'm secure in myself. I could get the girly fruity drinks, put the umbrella in, we'll go the whole 9 yards. You know, we went down to the Caribbean a few times, pina coladas by the pool. Had to do the Long Island iced tea chapter, right? Represent. Mm-hmm. Especially when I was living in California. That was my thing, getting Long Island iced teas. To let everybody know I'm an East Coast guy. You know, I'm an island boy, that type of thing. White Russians, when Big Lebowski came out, we were all about that for 6 months. But sweet drinks, girly drinks, frou-frou drinks, I didn't care. It wasn't really until I discovered tequila where I was like, what the like, it was just like, why is everybody, I feel like tequila is the one alcohol that people are afraid of. It fucks me up. I don't like the taste. I love the taste of tequila. You know, I won't drink it in excess. You know, give me a nice margarita, love it, right? But tequila on its own is really the only shot that I could do that I find pleasant. You know, again, it's like, I don't think we have any Mexican in our blood, but if there was one, you know, reason to be suspicious, it's like my love for tequila runs deep. When I discovered tequila and how well I get along with it, it's like, this doesn't even make sense. It's just like, I love the taste. I love the way it makes me feel. Again, I'm not going to drink a half a bottle of Cuervo. I'm going to behave myself, but I just find it so smooth and so appealing. And again, I never really had a top shelf tequila. You know, I think that might be dangerous. Maybe I should just stay away, but I just find tequila very, very inviting. It's just a really good taste. It's a really good vibe. I don't know. I feel like there's something 70s there about it too. Like, it just, there's a deeper something's going on with me and tequila. It's a love affair. It's a little bit of a love affair, my friend.
Do you like mezcal too?
Mezcal, I never really got into. I know that became a big thing. We ate at one really nice Mexican restaurant, not too far from here, that I think outside the city, but I think it's still open. Very sought after, hard to get a table. I know a lot of people would go there just to eat and then just sit and linger and have their mezcal and stuff like that. But yeah, I never really went down that. Once I found tequila is the one thing I'll try. If like we're hanging out at the bar, me and you, and maybe there's 4 of us, maybe the Last Stand Media guys, whatever, and we're fixing to do a shot, I'll make a big push for tequila because I enjoy it. I think there's something about tequila that goes good if you're drinking beer. There's not a big conflict there for me anyway. I don't know, for me anyway. But yeah, that was the big thing. Tequila was my big thing until an older colleague of mine introduced me to scotch, which I like scotch like you like whiskey. I like to drink it very casually.
Well, bourbon, they're both whiskeys.
Have a big, right. Yeah, right. But yeah, scotch, like actual scotch, is something that I don't drink scotch to get drunk, but if I'm just chilling, cigar, no cigar, fire pit outside watching a movie, just have a little bit of shot, no ice, clean, neat, whatever. Really kind of an enjoyable, more sophisticated. I like the smoky taste of it. I like the sweet, smoky taste of it. That taste profile is really appealing.
Yeah, scotch is interesting. I'm not into it, really. There are some great cocktails that use, like some high-end cocktails like Blood and Sand that use scotch that I really like, but that I was introduced to that drink in San Francisco. But
I never had that.
Bourbon is, to me, so scotch is literally made from old bourbon barrels, right? And so for people that don't know, bourbon needs to be made in the United States to be called bourbon, out of certain mash builds and all of that, but it needs to be made in a brand new American oak barrels. And it goes in clear. You probably know this. It goes in clear, reduced from corn and sometimes wheat and other things. And it gets its brownness from the barrel. When those barrels are done, those barrels are incredibly valuable. And I've told you that I want to buy a barrel one day because you can do all sorts of shit with it, where you can literally, and people do this, they call it hillbilly lemonade, I think, where you fill it with tons of sugar, lemons, and water, and close it back up and just put it away for a few years, and then it turns into this really boosted lemonade, basically.
That sounds good.
So there's all sorts of cool things you can do to it, but what a lot of companies like Wild Turkey and others do is they take all their barrels when they're emptied and they sell them to the scotch companies. And then the scotch companies make scotch out of those barrels because the entire idea is that they want them used and worn to get that taste for scotch. And some people really like it. It's just, scotch has a very distinct flavor profile. The thing about bourbon to me that I love is that it burns. Like there's something about it where I'm like, you're almost not supposed to be drinking this. In fact, no, you weren't with us. I told you when we went to Kentucky, and we'll do that again sometime soon, I hope, is they were like, we were drinking, like we were getting these things from Eric, our friend Eric, like getting these tours that you wouldn't usually get. And they would literally go up to the still in one of these places and just scoop out like the stuff, like the clear stuff, and give you some of it to drink. And they're like, you can't drink too much of this, or like it'll fucking wreck you. Like, and you'll go blind and stuff like that. And like the alcohol content is so high before it distills. It's like so fucked. And it's something like you're not really supposed to probably be drinking, while as opposed to something a little more, I mean, it's all natural, but agave based stuff. Mezcal is a little easier for me to drink than tequila. There was a great bar that you would have really loved in San Francisco called ABV that Eric was friends with. And it was a mezcal and tequila bar. And they would serve them in bowls, like little clay bowls instead of glasses. And so it was neat.
That's awesome. Authentic experience.
Right.
Yeah.
But cool. Yeah, it's not really for me. The tequila, obviously huge in San Francisco. So like when you order a Boilermaker in California, it's often a tequila and a Tecate, right?
Okay.
As opposed to like getting, whatever.
Love that.
A Pabst and a Scotch or a bourbon or whatever you would get.
Yeah, sounds like Philly.
So like when you would go to a bar there, you would often get, that's how I was introduced to Tecate. And it's so interesting. Tecate has become so big, but it was a very localized thing for me there. Like, no, I didn't even know what that was when I moved to California. And that is like the Budweiser there.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. There's certain I love San Francisco's, or California's very, I think multiculturalism is generally good as long as it's kept under control, where everyone's living a normal and decent life, being decent and respectful towards each other, and nothing's overriding each other. But in California, it's like a very interesting and very nice mix of cultures where you get like heavy Chinese influence, heavy Mexican influence, and Central American influence. Obviously tons of European influence as well. And you get this food, this drink, this vibe that is very uniquely California. That's the one thing that I miss. It's very different there. And you get used to it. And then when you leave, I don't think people really, because even if you visit it, you don't really get it. You know, like it's just a totally different subset of things that you'll eat and have access to and stuff like that. Almost as if it's another country sometimes. And I think about that. It's much more vanilla here where I am now. And for better or for worse, you know, not only in how white it is, I don't mean vanilla that way. Actually, Micah says she grew up in Western Mass, and she's like, she can't believe how many black people are here. Like she's never seen this many black people. And I'm like, that's so funny. You know, like
that really
is just about where she's like, I was the black person, you know, like,
yeah, that's gotta be weird. Yeah. California gets a lot of shit for their lack of culture. I never understood that. I think it's different.
It has too much culture. If anything, it's too crazy, you know,
it's a lot.
But dude, California, think about Mad Men when they go to California. Mm-hmm. That's fucking California.
That's a great.
Oh my God.
That was a great chapter for California.
Dude, to be in California in the 60s.
Come
on, dude.
Mid to late
Come
60s.
on. He lives in the hills or whatever. And I'm like,
so cool.
This was it. My ex used to say this all the time, that the one I went to high school with, where she was like, man, we just lived here too late. Like and I'm like, you're right. We missed it. It's not even anywhere like that now, but there was a magical moment for California that we missed. I think I just got there in the shadow of it in some sense, like just, it was gone, but there was still a taste of it.
That's a great, and shout out to Don, shout out to Man Man and Don Draper and you for introducing me to the one cocktail that I still really will order. And that's the old fashioned, which I think is a delicious cocktail, especially when they're made really well. But that was the thing about bourbon, and especially me with, well, to some degree whiskey, but especially me with scotch, is that's when I learned how to drink just to get that little adult mild buzz. You weren't drinking to get drunk. You were just drinking to mellow out. That's what that chapter ushered in when I discovered, especially scotch. And probably, dude, that was probably around your age, maybe early 40s, where I discovered scotch and the benefits of just chilling out with a drink. You weren't drinking to excess. You weren't wilding out, right? You weren't getting smashed. It was just drinking. Drinking became a vibe, and that was, so that's why it was important. That's why you know what the other thing is? How are you with this too? I was thinking about this when I was taking my notes for the episode. There's also something about, you get old enough, especially when you're having people over, whether it's family, neighbors, friends, whatever. I like to have a variety of things in the house to accommodate everybody's taste. And I'm saying, if we're having a holiday, maybe we'll have a couple of signature cocktails. And Helene's really good with that. She'll print things out from the internet and say, we'll have the ingredients to make these cool things. It's festive for this specific occasion. But just have the bourbon on hand, have a couple of different varieties of scotch, have a couple of things where people can make a martini if that's their speed, maybe a few different types of beers. I try to be really mindful of wine, wines. What kind of wine do you like? And just for hanging, not even for mealtime, just for hanging, just to have something, a little something for everybody. It's almost like the basement vibes that we grew up with, where, you get the full bar. Maybe you don't have the full bar, but you have it set up in the dining room nice, where there's a little something for everybody that's going to come. I try to, drinking and entertaining, that's something very appealing for me. I don't want to be the guy who has like one type of beer and a bottle of whiskey. I want to make sure everybody's taken care of.
Yeah, I'm looking up here. You were talking about old fashions as well, and just kind of the basic drinks. So according to The Fine Art of Mixing Drinks, the 1940s book, that's kind of the David Embury book, that's kind of like the Bible in some way. The 6 drinks that everyone should know how to make and have access to are the daiquiri, the Jack Rose, the Manhattan, the Martini, the Sidecar, and the Old Fashioned. And as I understand it, the Old Fashioned is the first cocktail and was developed in the United States is the inventor of the cocktail. the inventor of many things. And I just love the idea of dudes sitting at a bar in like 1810 drinking old fashions, and they were basically the same as the ones we drink today, if you make them right, of course.
Super cool.
And it's awesome. It's totally dope. And you can imagine dudes being like, yeah, it's just bourbon, simple syrup and Ango bitters. And that's it. Just a little mix, put it over ice, get a little garnish. If you're muddling and putting things in it, get the fuck out of here with that shit. I can't believe people do that still.
You don't like the muddling?
No, that's called fruit salad old fashioned. And that's like a product of the post-war era, apparently, and is not the way you're supposed to make an old fashioned by any shape.
Oh, interesting.
No way, man. Yeah, like an old fashioned should be able to, it should just be brown liquid with a big ice cube in it and a little lemon garnish. And that's it. There should be nothing floating in it, nothing at the bottom of the glass, nothing.
Basic.
Like and you don't have to use simple. You could use like real sugar, like a sugar cube if you have to, and then you would have to muddle that. But that's not ideal. I don't know why you wouldn't just make simple syrup. It's easier, or buy it.
Yeah, I like the basic. That's very lean and very the simplicity. It's elegant in its simplicity, right? It's just that's a damn good drink. I mean, Helene started to get into those, which I don't know why I think of the old fashioned as masculine. Maybe that's a Don Draper thing. But
I think it is a masculine drink. A lot of people think that like that's like it can be like, holy shit, that's so strong, you know. And
it is strong,
but I like it strong. Why drink? You need to know you're drinking alcohol. It's important that alcohol is strong. If old fashioned wasn't strong, I would drink it to excess, and that wouldn't be good.
Delicious.
All right. The final thing I wanted to ask you about, Dig, I guess, because I think we should stop by the time around we get to 21. In some sense, it becomes less interesting there. But your introduction to kind of collegiate drinking, like any Northeastern was not a unique place. Like any college, the drinking was completely rampant. And in fact, I was kind of put off by it, especially in the beginning, where I'm like, I don't know, man. I wasn't much of a drink. I would drink sometimes, but a lot of my friends drank all of the time. And I was cognizant that I was becoming a pothead in college, which I was. And so I wanted to choose my lane as best as I could and have maybe one vice instead of multiple vices. But man, my friends love to drink. And I was saying my introduction to IPA happened when I was a sophomore. My friend Kevin went and got us all beers. And I think I asked him to get me Guinness or whatever, but they didn't have it. And so, because it was too late. And so he just got me Harpoon, which is a Boston and Vermont IPA. And that was and I was like, I don't know if I want this or whatever. And then I just fell in love with Harpoon. I was like, oh my God, this is so good. This is so good. And that's still, I haven't had it in many years. You really can't get it anywhere but in the New England. But unless you go to like a specialty beer place or whatever. And so I haven't had it in some time, but I would argue that probably must still be my favorite beer. And that was when IPAs were kind of not a thing really at that point. So I didn't really even know what I was getting myself into. And that opened doors to me by the time I left college and moved to California, where I was open to Stone and even just pale ales generally, like Sierra Nevada and all that. And so I really fell in line with those kinds of beers because of that happy accident. And I wonder if that would have happened one way or the other. But again, not a liquor person in college really, except for shots and stuff like that. But I didn't really like doing that stuff. So yeah, beer, lots of weed, but definitely a lot of Harpoon. And that was my shit. So by the time I turned 21, I remember my 21st birthday, I remember it really well because I was so happy. I was like, I can't believe I can do this. There was a Shaw's, which is a supermarket in New England on Huntington Avenue at Prudential Center, like underneath the Prudential Center, which is a huge skyscraper in Boston. And I walked in there. They have so at the time, I don't think this is true anymore. On Sundays in Boston, Massachusetts, you couldn't buy beer or alcohol. So you had to go on another day to get your beer. And I think it was just a random weekday. I could look. I don't know what October 14th, 9th, or 2006 was. I think it was what it was, or 2005, I guess it would have been. And I walk to the Shaw's, go to the beer section, buy my beer, take out my ID very anxiously, take out my ID and buy beer for the first time legally, and then walk back with it. And I remember being so amped at carrying this it was a 30 rack of Keystone. And I was saying earlier, that was like kind of the beer I used to go get for more party situations. And I just remember very, very well doing that. And I must say that I never Another memory I have, and I haven't done it, I only did it once, but I haven't done it since, is that I did buy beer for underage people once. I don't know if you ever did that.
Who was it?
It was my friend Luis, who went to Harvard, and he was there with his girlfriend, and they were a year younger than me. So I remember they like stood across the street from like a liquor store, and I went in and bought it and then just handed it to them or whatever. They were adults, it's not like I was giving it to children or whatever, but I remember doing that. And that was a place, Huntington Liquor. I don't know if it's still there, but that's not a place you'd fuck around with. They had and this must be a thing that they must do at other places, but I'll never forget this. They had a wall, like a huge wall next to it was like their counter, and then kind of adjacent to the counter, of all of the fake IDs that they've taken from people, going all the way back to like the 80s.
Dude,
and they're all just there.
The wall of shame.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was totally awesome. I loved it.
Fantastic.
It was supposed to be like a warning sign. You never, because that was kind of that was the liquor store that was pretty much on campus. So they were probably getting fucked with on a constant basis. But we realized, as I've said in the past, that we could go down Huntington Avenue towards Brigham Young and I'm not Brigham Young, Brigham Women's Hospital. And there was a liquor store down there, and they would sell to anyone. And we used to just go there with rolling bags. And you'd see people walking around campus like with these rolling bags, and everyone knew that there was just 30 racks of beer and liquor bottles clanking around, and like they would be bumping over the bricks, and it would just be like making bottle noises and shit like that. It was so funny when you think about it. But then you turn 21 and it kind of loses its luster, and now I'm at the point where no one cards me. I haven't been carded in years.
Really?
Not at a supermarket, not at a bar. No.
You're kidding me.
Nope.
I think they have to card you in Pennsylvania, especially because the horse and buggy rules were finally lifted, or whatever it was here 10 years ago. So now all the supermarkets, like normal places everywhere else in the world, sell beer and liquor and alcohol and wine. But I think they legally, in those places especially, have to ask for your ID to scan it.
Oh, to scan it. Yeah. They don't do that here.
Yeah.
Because I find that a little obnoxious if I'm, and this would be much easier if the drinking age was 18, which I think it will eventually get back to maybe in the future, but you don't know that I'm fucking not. Do I look like I'm below 21? I think it's okay to say like, I can't tell. Can you give me your ID? But for most people, you're clearly old enough to buy the beer. Why am I bothering you with this? It's yeah. And that's what I think happens here. I do think they put dates in when they type them in, but I often think they're just typing in like 1/1/1980 or whatever. Because I've often been in a position where it's like, you need my ID, and it's like, no.
They even wave it away.
Yeah.
Wow.
And never at a restaurant or a bar. I don't think I've been ID'd at a bar or a restaurant in many, many years.
Yeah, for me, that's the same. Yeah, it might just be the supermarkets here, which happens to be where I buy all the wine and beer. But yeah, they're still, I don't know if if it's a knee jerk thing, it's still the Wild West. So they're still kind of going through the proper protocols here, and maybe eventually it'll stop. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's still a thing in Pennsylvania.
Well, let me ask you this, and I don't want to put you on the spot or make things awkward, but It's like, what about drinking with me when I was a kid? Why did you guys do that?
You know what's funny about that? I don't remember drinking with you. Like, I really didn't start drinking to get drunk until after college. And I remember the only time I remember you being around when alcohol must have been around was when you visited Philly when I was still in school. And I only know that because I definitely hung out with certain cats that were super into drinking. But there were other people in my life, like my best friends, like PJ, who really weren't interested ever in drinking. Drugs, certainly, that was a chapter for PJ, but drinking was never really appealed to him. But yeah, it's funny that I don't remember going out to I wish I remembered. I know Dana, I'm not sure what Allie's drinking habits were in college. She went to school at FIT in New York. I know she went out a lot. She was more of a club person. Dana was more, I think, doing the fraternity, sorority, college campus, SUNY, upstate New York experience, which was keg parties and, your typical, prototypical college drinking experience. I don't really, you know what's funny about that? I don't remember what you drank. I don't remember what you like to drink when you were.
Oh, just beer. It was usually, that was like Amstel, a lot of Amstel, I remember. Heineken. Like
Heineken.
I have a memory of drinking with you at Dad's house. With PJ was there, but I guess he wasn't drinking, and it was like one of PJ's friends, I guess, too. I was probably in 12th grade or something like that. I don't say it in judgment because I think that like that's part of having older siblings.
Yeah, I think that would have been
and
cool
often, and by the time I was in college, it really wasn't a big deal anymore at all. I was drinking at the beach with everyone and all these kinds of different things. We have a beach house, a family beach house, and all that kind of stuff. But I was grateful to kind of be treated that way because I do think it demystified. I think that can be very dangerous for certain people, and maybe you don't want to do that. But I do appreciate the demystification that provided me for alcohol, where I'm like, I don't know, it is what it is. I'm not. It does what it does. It's not this untold thing that I can't access or have to be scared of in some way. So I think it kind of worked out for my own mentality. It didn't adversely affect me at all. It made me a more experienced drinker quicker, which I think was to my benefit when I went to college, where I had like a little bit more of an ability to withstand alcohol and understand how to work around it and navigate around it. So I'm grateful for that. I don't think it would be the best thing in the world for most people to do, maybe, and maybe it wasn't right for me to have that kind of access, but I appreciated being kind of one of the family and not being isolated and left out.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's funny. I wish I had more memories of that. And it could have been also a case of me not starting to drink to excess until I was probably 24, 25. Still, you would have been pretty young at that point, but not even realizing like the power of alcohol and being drunk and stuff like that. You know what it does remind me of? Like having a 17-year-old Colin around. It reminds me of how I feel now with my kids and how, as a parent, you go through all these chapters, right? And it evolves as they get older. You're always, especially with the first one, you're doing everything as a parent for the first time. So now Helene and I are in this untrodden Wild West territory of having a 16, 17-year-old and drinking, 11th grade, drinking, parties, the whole social sphere opening up for the kid. Now we're going through that for the first time. And it's a weird thing because you have to embrace it, I guess, as somewhat inevitable. Like every kid's going to go through this journey and have these same things. It's just like when we were 16 or 17, those things don't really change. They're kind of a part of the fabric of being that age. But how do you deal with it? How much do you approve of? How much do you not approve of? Where do you put your foot down? Where do you kind of become a stricter disciplinarian versus just embracing like, all right, I guess they're going to get up to no good with the drink, that type of thing. That's what it reminds me of. It's like having somebody, I'm sure we wanted to have you as like part of the circle. If we're having beers after Thanksgiving dinner and we're all together in the same house and we're finally spending some time, we haven't seen each other in a year, that type of thing. But on the other end, there had to be some sort of notion of, well, he's only 17, he's only 18, that type of thing. It's interesting. Yeah, I never really paid that much attention to drinking. Maybe I just didn't take it seriously. I don't know. I'm not sure. I wonder what this is a good conversation to have with Dana because she just has a better memory when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I also think she has a lot of adventures. Because she had a very, well, kind of like you, she had a pretty typical college campus experience, where I went to an inner city art school. So it was totally different. It was a whole different thing. That was the thing about going to school. But you know what you and I have in common? We went to school in big college towns, Boston versus Philly. When I went to school, it was such a mix of people. Mm-hmm. We had the Ivy League school, we had UPenn, we had Drexel, we had Temple, we had about 5 or 6 different art schools. And we were all converging at the same house parties, the same events, the same clubs, the same bars. You know what was cool about Philly, though? I imagine sections of Boston are the same way. A lot of the bars, a lot of the nighttime, Friday, Saturday night drinking community, the bars or the establishments were very towny and also mixed with the college population, which were essentially out of towners, right? So you had the Philly mainstays, the blue collar people, the working class, whatever, mixing with the college students at these spots, which I always thought was so cool because it was such a diverse mix of people all the time at these places. There were really interesting older cats mixed with the college crowd. Maybe the teachers and the professors would get involved in that kind of stuff too. So it was a really kind of not only urban, but a really diverse mixture of people that made just going out interesting. You know, you have a ciggy, you have a drink, a beer or a cocktail, and you just kind of chat it up with people. I thought that's what I really miss about Philly. It was very integrated with all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you got to come up in the smoking inside era too, which is big. I missed that.
The very last vestiges of that.
By the time I was an adult, I was over, which is a bummer.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that's what's so fun about being in Japan or a place like that where you can just do that. And so you want to because you can.
Still like that.
Yeah,
there.
Totally. Smoke inside. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost old fashioned for us now. Mm-hmm. It's like, wow, remember when? That type of thing. Yeah. When I was in LA living there in 2000, that was the first, and it was still, you know, it wasn't like that on the East Coast yet. That was the harbinger of that, where it was like, okay, this is weird. I'm not allowed to smoke a cigarette while I'm having a beer indoors, you know, and then, you know, it'll never be like this in New York. Cut to 8 years later.
Yep.
It was the same exact shit.
Yep. Yeah, it's a bummer. All right. I'm looking through my notes here. I really don't have much else to get to other than, I guess, to kind of put a fine point on what you were saying about the family drinking and all of that was, I think that's a double-edged sword. Like, you probably don't want to endorse that kind of behavior for people before it's time, but the demystification, the responsibility, the understanding, they say this a lot in Europe. I mean, at least anecdotally, that when you hear about it, is like kids drink earlier there and they have, it's not that to say that they don't have alcoholism and stuff there. They do. It's as rampant as it is here probably, but there's a better understanding and respect for it when you realize that it's not, by putting something off so much beyond when you even become an adult, it makes it so, it's so mystical and you can't help but want to jump the line. And by just bringing that back to a normal place, like the government should have no right to tell you that you can't do dick after you're 18. It's like, whatever, dude, I'm 18. That's it. I can do whatever I want. Well, what is that? That's craziness, you know? And I think that would go a long way towards, I would imagine that you would see fewer drunk driving deaths, that you would see because people would be just exposed to it earlier and it wouldn't be this thing that would have to be done in secret.
Right.
In fact, like you have to wonder, it's kind of similar to sex education and stuff where does it behoove a parent to say like, this is alcohol. This is what it is. This is how it tastes. This is what you do with it. This is the varieties of it. You should understand it. Similar to finance and shit like that. Like, it's no different. For some reason, we really only talk about sex like that. But there are things that adults should be ready for by the time you become an adult. And maybe another one of those things is drinking. I'm not saying that you should just be shoving beer down your fucking 12-year-old's throat, but like, but think like, and I'm saying this not as a parent, but it's like, is it the worst thing in the world for your 14-year-old to have a beer with his uncles or his family at a barbecue and he gets it a little bit and he understands it. And it's so that when it's presented to him in a different situation, maybe he's not so curious.
Yeah.
I think that's a double-edged sword for sure, but I wonder how that would work out. And I feel like I was one edge of that sword by being exposed to it and knowing it and doing it illicitly and stuff like that, like all kids do, or most kids do. I came to realize that it wasn't something it was nothing. And it's just something you have to control. Yeah. It's just a lubricant. Once you see it.
That it is.
Right. And once you see it for what it is, like an age, like we were saying, time immemorial, just lubricant forever, something to be respected and not abused.
Absolutely.
Putting it on a pedestal until you're 21 is so strange that we as a society let that be a thing is weird. And and
especially if you juxtapose that against being in the military, voting, all these other things.
Shit, let's raise the voting age. I'd love to do that. So we'll just raise it all. You know?
No, it's a tricky dance, man. And as a parent, it's really about finding that line. And you don't want to raise curiosity to a fever pitch. Because, and again, this is one attribute I have as a parent. I make a lot of mistakes, man. Believe me, that's an ongoing thing. But one thing I think I do have is that I can channel what it feels like to be a certain age. So if I think back to being 16, and I wasn't the prototypical 16 when it came to, I'm going to get loaded. Like it wasn't on my radar yet. But if I think back to being the conventional 16-year-old, it's like, all right, what's the draw with drinking? TV, movies, you're just rebellious. You're chomping at the bit to be an adult. A combination of all of these things, right? Just try to remember what that felt like. And then it's like what you said earlier too about that whole over strict Catholic school thing, where it has the reverse effect. It's like you're establishing this thing of too much forbidden fruit. Now they really want it. It's almost like you're making it's this cause and effect thing when you're making it even more appealing. So how do you sort of strike this balance of saying, like, I know in some sense this is inevitable. This is going to happen. You're going to become an adult. You're going to experiment. You're going to want to do things with your friends. Peer pressure is another huge thing, right? Like it's complicated. It's a complicated tapestry.
The peer pressure thing was real for me too.
Was that real?
Oh yeah, definitely. You just, not that people were being like, do it, Colin, do it, but you just want to be, no one did that to me, but that you want to be one of the guys,
Yes. Yeah. That's a great point too. I mean, again, going back to junior high school and the house party thing and being that, sort of upping your social cachet and all that kind of thing. I think just for me, it was just being there or just being invited or just being, even if I wasn't invited, being able to get in with my friends and not get kicked out. Mm-hmm. That was enough.
Right.
Just to be there because I was so longing to, especially pre-skateboarding, like just be one of the cool kids.
Totally, man. I did you ever have a classic house party situation in high school? I did have
so many.
It's so funny, man. I only went to one. I went to many parties in high school, but I guess what I'm saying is like a party that is like Oingo Boingo would be playing it in fucking back to school or something like that kind of party. You know what I mean? I went to one of those.
A rager?
Where I was like people were dancing on tables and it was crazy and there was like a random band and like all, and I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. I remember being in the moment. I was a senior in high school and I remember being like, wow, this is like American Pie or something. Like this is like a real, but I only really went to one of those. In college, they were much more traditional like that party, but you expect that at that time. So
that's a good point.
But a lot of the other parties I went to were they were fun, but they were never, it was never like what you would, like what it's like, let's go to a fucking house party, like Can't Hardly Wait or something, some random 90s movie. And it's, I only went to one of those and I remember it pretty well, actually. It was on one of the houses, on South Country in between where the school is and where we lived at Dad's and on Woodland. There was like those houses that were set back on one side of the road, right? Like you would go up these long driveways and it was at one of those houses. And so I was able to walk to it and then walk back and I was totally drunk. I think that was with Mike. I remember that very well. Yeah.
No, dude. Yeah. Starting in junior high, I remember it starting out like it was like, ooh, spin the bottle in the basement or 7 minutes in heaven. Like that was the big thing. And maybe you go down there and there's lights set up and it's dark and there's black lights or disco balls. And it starts out somewhat innocent. Maybe there's like a couple of cases of beer that the older sibling got, like hush hush. But it was always, whether it was that or it escalated to like bigger homes and bigger crowds and people like being destructive and all that kind of thing. There was always a sense for me of where are the parents? Because I just always went back to mom and dad would kill me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how this is happening. There was always a sense of that no matter the scale. I see it now in my neighborhood, not on my block, but on adjoining cul-de-sacs in the summertime, especially. I could hear it. And, kids are outside, they're in the pool, they're way too loud, way too late because it's a typically very quiet neighborhood. And I know it's because the parents are on vacation and they leave the kids and there's just some hush hush thing with the neighbors. And kids are just having a house party.
You don't want to rat out your neighbor's kids. Like no. To me, I would never do that. I would be like, never do that. Unless they were like really like fighting. It had like a fight club or something like that. But I'm not going to like get crazy with it otherwise,
I think the parents know though. I think it's this kind of set of wealthy people that are going to go away every quarter every 2 or 3 months by themselves, whether they're going to Aruba or wherever the fuck they're going, and they leave the teenage kids home. And I think the trade-off is that they know this is happening. And I think the trade-off is too, these people have enough money where they, honestly, I shouldn't say this, it sounds terrible, but I don't even think they care about the destruction of the house. Just like, okay, get the cleaning services in here, a couple of things broke.
Well, clearly dude, it's not like it was. Like, think about Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. I don't know why that movie keeps coming up all the time on the show. But it's like they were able to get this going for months and months because there was really no way to check in on them. But you would think that would be over today. I can look at my fucking cameras right now.
No, that goes on. That goes on like crazy, man.
So it's so funny to me that there's not even a mystery. It's not like even the parents are like, just go on your camera and look at what your kids are doing in the backyard. I mean, you could just do that right now.
That's true.
And so that's what I'm thinking, where I was like, it seems like you would have to buy it. You would have to understand that the parents know, because there's no way for them not to know. It can't be a mystery at this age. That's
the trade-off. Like, I know we're going away, we're going to Aruba and you're going to have the party and whatever, that type. I don't know if it's absentee parentism in some cases and they just don't give a shit, or if it's the fact of like, all right, this is the only way we're going to get away. The kids are going to do what they're going to do. Maybe they're letting the kids get up to a little too much mischief. Again, absentee. But it is weird that it still goes on in today's day and age with technology and all that kind of thing. But yeah, it's still a thing. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in my daughter's universe, at 11th grade, going on being a senior in high school and everything like that. Because I think as much has changed, I think there's so much that's still, I suspect there's so much that's still the same, and that will always be the same. You know what I mean? Just being that age, what you want to get up to, friends, romantic relationships, all that type of thing, and just all the social stuff. The trappings change, but the meat, like the nucleus, is always the same for me. I guess, you can't, they still have to get together, right? They still want to drink. They still want to be together under the same roof, even in the advent of social media where they're on the fucking phone all day, right? There's still those same human needs of being that age. So I don't know if it'll ever change. Yeah,
that's well said.
It'll go from Zima to whatever they're drinking, to White Claws or whatever they're drinking now.
Yeah, it's probably beyond that now. I don't even know what the young people are drinking. Sometimes I see younger people and I'm like, I'm so old. Time is going so quickly in some sense, and things are moving fast.
They really are.
Dig, do we have anything else we want to say on this topic? Or are we satisfied?
I just have to give a humble shout to the mighty Hangover. I wanted to check in with you on the Hangover.
No good.
Which is something I didn't have until I was out of college. Again, I would just drink enough to be in the spot, to be in the social circle, be with my friends, smoke some ciggies. I got hungover more on just chain smoking.
Yeah, you feel that the next day.
And actually, yeah, that's a whole thing. That cigarette buzz. But yeah, my first hangover was probably 99. I left Philly in 98 to go to my first job in New England in Connecticut. And when we all converged back, all of us kind of went back into Philly to stay. A lot of my friends were still in Philly, still at Nerd House down on Bainbridge Street. We were going to have this big 4th of July blowout. So I had been gone for a while. I was returning. I had the Long Island contingent with me and my friends from Boston. I had friends from Boston at the time. And then my one friend was in graduate school in Pittsburgh. So we were all coming back to Philly for this big 4th of July blowout. Dude, I got so drunk for the first time in my life that it's the first hangover that at least I could remember. Woke up in my friend's apartment. He was rooming with this really nice girl who I knew that I used to wait tables with. But she was kind of a very serious person. She put up with a lot with us. But I remember waking up in her apartment. Office Space was playing on cable. And we would we couldn't even get up off the floor. So I was on the floor. My friend Rick was on the couch. And we were just watching Office Space on loop as we were just trying to come to and get our druthers. Mm-hmm. But I remember that was sort of very meaningful. It really pointed to how my hangovers were going to be, which were very much spins. The spins harsh, really harsh. No throwing up. I don't think I've ever actually physically threw up or vomited from being drunk, but I could not eat for a full day. I couldn't even entertain the thought of food. And that would go on through my 20s and into my 30s. That's the way I got hungover, where it was like the next morning, I really, really paid. I wasn't bent over the toilet, throwing up or anything like that, but the light bothered me, headache, spins, and just the thought of food, which would have helped to have a little nourishment, a little something to soak it up. I couldn't eat for a full day afterwards. Like I would just wreck myself. And I think a lot of that was the chain smoking, not just the drinking. But I just want to give a shout out to the mighty hangover and pay an homage, because that's how you learn to regulate your drinking.
Definitely.
When you get to, it's like, I don't want to feel like, yes, it's fun in the moment, but I do not want to pay the price tomorrow.
You just have to, there are just certain things you need to know about drinking that are fundamentally true. You never, liquor than beer, you're in the clear. Beer than liquor, you've never been sicker. It's true. It's totally true. So just like little things like that. I told you that one story about in Manhattan about me kind of getting fucked up. But one story I remember getting the spins and getting fucking wasted was at Cody Derby's house at the corner of where Dad lived, like a few houses down. And I passed out in his back lawn next to his pool. And his mom came, and Lainey, who I love, she was a teacher in our school district. She came outside and like kind of like kicked me with her foot. And was like, "What are you doing?" And it was like, 8 in the morning or whatever. And I'm like just waking up, and then she like helps me get to her couch in the living room and lets me like pass out there or whatever. And I remember that was because of the spins, because my friend Anthony this is what I was talking about. I remember driving in the back of his car, like ripping bongs and like doing all, well, I don't know what we were doing. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, what were we doing? But you kind of learn the various ways to survive these ordeals. And people ask me, I think Dustin even said something to me once when he was here. He's like, we were drinking and I was smoking, and he's like, "You don't get the spins?" And I'm like, I'm fucking, and thinking to myself, like, I'm an adult now, like I know what to do now. If this was me back, it's the same thing with like when I was smoking weed with Dad in California, and we were walking down the street, and he's like, "You smoked this whole thing?" Which I'll never forget as long as I live. I think that's like one of the funniest like dead ass dad moments I've ever experienced in my entire life. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, probably like 5 times a day. So you kind of learn to deal with that. A person that really helped me a lot, actually, when I was older, was Damon Hatfield at IGN. Just with, I don't remember what it was, Advil or Tylenol or something. You take something, you'd have to go look it up, but like you take something right when you're going to bed, and you really do feel fine the next day. I remember him. I used to get really drunk overseas when we would go to these different things at IGN, and he really saved me in Germany once with that. I stayed up really late with Per Schneider. Per obviously was born and raised in Germany, and I remember that night I got really drunk with him, and I asked him, I'm like, "What was it like what did you learn about the Nazis when you guys were kids?" Like that kind of thing. Like what? Because he was the generation of like, and I remember I was talking like kind of secretly, it's quietly at a bar, because it's kind of verboten, as it were, in Germany to talk about that stuff. And I remember that really well. And I woke up the next day, just sprung right back up, because I had like an 8 or 9 o'clock appointment in the morning. The last time I got really hungover was in 2014, and it was at New York Comic Con, and I was supposed to go to Rockstar the next day, and I had to cancel because I was so fucked up.
Oh man!
But I haven't been. It wasn't even fucked up. It was just like, I need a couple hours. Like, I'm not going to make it. It wasn't the all day hangover or even the 2-day hangover. So you do learn how to deal with that stuff over time. You do push it so far every so often. But if you just stay hydrated, I personally believe eating is a really good thing to do. Like, I eat a ton when I drink. And
beforehand.
Well, even during. Like, if I have 3 drinks at dinner, which I often do, which is a lot to drink, I'm eating appetizers, I'm having fucking dinner, and that kind of stuff just flows right through you. And then if you're drinking at a bar or whatever, and then come home, I just make myself a meal. And I really feel like that helps you cut right through it too. You definitely, here's the thing, is like, you cannot go to bed without drinking tons of water. If I think that it's going to be a problem, I drink so much water that I'm getting up 4 times to pee in the next 2 hours, because I'm like, I'd rather do that than deal with this tomorrow. And it works. You just have to purge yourself. you're hungover because you're dehydrated. It is that simple. It is nothing else. It's not because the alcohol is percolating around your body. It's because you're dry, totally dry, and you have to rehydrate yourself. So, but that's adult stuff.
The water remedy's smart. That's really smart. But were you one of those guys, let's say you put yourself into hangover position, were you one of those people the next day that could go out for breakfast, hungover, and eat?
Sometimes, I mean, that's a spectrum, right? There are times where it's like, I don't want to even think about it. There are times where I'm like, I must eat. In college, we had access to the dining hall. So a lot of that was kind of tempting in the sense, it's like, let's just go eat, have the people make us whatever you want, like eggs and bacon and whatever.
That always defied logic to me because I think about drinking with my animation colleagues many times, go to work, go out to drink, a lot of times stay with them, whether they lived in the city or closer to the city, go to work with them the next day. So I was with them for the whole thing. Equally hungover, me and them. One cannot stand the thought of even thinking about food. The other one's just like, can't wait to go out to breakfast. I never understood those people. It's like, you're just as hungover as me. You're feeling it just as bad, but you want to go out for a lumberjack breakfast,
because they probably know that's what's going to help them get through.
Oh, it always was so mysterious to me. I was like, I know damn well I'm not eating till late tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah. It usually is an evening proposition. Like I would always think a pizza or like a burger really cuts it and gets into the nitty gritty in my opinion.
Smart.
All right, my friend.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. It was good to catch up on this. I thought this was on your long topic list, and I was like, yeah, let's do this one. We'll get back into something. I don't know, a game or a movie next time. But by the way,
game will be fun.
Good response to Mom's episode, by the way. That was the last episode we did.
That was.
And that was a nice thing. We'll get more of the family members on as we can. I think that'll be fun. Uncle Mike would be a funny one to do if we can get.
That would be so fun, dude.
He fucked himself up though. Let me see. I saw the.
Oh, is that right? What happened?
Tore his meniscus.
What was he doing?
He was like moving something or whatever. I just got the text when we were recording.
Holy shit, that's serious. That's like full on athlete problem.
Yeah. So
torn meniscus.
Yeah. So
how was he moving?
Yeah, I don't know. And Carla told us because we went to Dash's birthday thing on Friday and he wasn't there. Yeah. So she told us a little bit about it, but I didn't get the whole thing. So I don't know exactly how it happened, but
he'd be fun. But yeah, they love the BAM. They love the Betty Ann Moriarty. You guys, the outpouring of support. I know it means a lot to her because she loves she loves your LSM community.
Oh, she definitely knows. Yeah, she's wonderful. Yeah, she's our biggest fan, no doubt. All right, Dave, let's end this episode like we always do with a dad joke.
All right, I'm busting these out for 2024. Here we go. I think I got one that never saw this one. Kyle, I was wondering why this Frisbee kept looking bigger and bigger. And then it hit me.
That's nice. I like that one. That's good.
That's dad joke.
Yeah, it's
dad joke vibes.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right, Dave. Well, it was good to see you, my friend. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, it was fun. Great to see
you on Constellation. We'll obviously see you on Punching Up as well and all those other places. We'll be back in a couple weeks for another new episode of Knockback. In the meantime, your support on Patreon is much appreciated for all of our content. Patreon.com/LastStandMedia and LastStandMedia.store for merch. We couldn't do it without you. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye. Knockback, a retro and nostalgia podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from Central Virginia and the Philadelphia suburbs, USA. The show was conceived by and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Dagan Moriarty. Knockback's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Knockback, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.